What's up, everyone? Good morning. Happy Thursday, August 10th here. What a day. So far, we had CPI. We were just trading it with our futures room here pre-market. Two trades we mentioned. First one was long 10. It got like 6 points out of it. Second one, long 97. Now trading up about 25 points from the area. So great stuff, honestly. Might be done trading on the day. So if you guys are interested in these big news events, you know where to find us at TRADEPROacademy.com. But let's dive into this. The main thing that we do have to talk about is CPI, the inflation data that came out today. So everyone was watching this, right? Traders, investors, everyone, the Fed. We had a joint huddle around the CPI, which generally speaking didn't really move the market. Everything came out somewhat as expected. The consumer price index, which is CPI, will set the tone realistically for the discussion of monetary policy over the next few weeks after the central bank raised its benchmark rate in July to the highest level that we've seen since 2001. So another batch of soft figures could enable the Fed to continue taking its foot off the accelerator as disinflation takes a hold of the US economy. So, by the numbers, the Fed's preferred inflation gauge is the PCE, the core PCE. The CPI provides an earlier view of inflation trends, and economists expect that July's CPI will be released today. The expectations were 0.2% for the month over month figure, which was the same as June. On a year over year basis, there was an expected increase to 3.3% versus, the 3.0% in June, which was the slowest pace over the last 2 years. Meanwhile, the core CPI is expected to be raised 0.2% month over month. And in the same period, the expected core year over year is expected 4.8%. So we got, as for the headline number, the year-over-year CPI 3.2%, and pretty much everything else was in line with expectations. The 3.2% was pretty much what they were expecting. They were expecting 3.3, so a slight, minute drop from the higher inflation that was expected came out. What I'm doing right now is I'm uh, going to struggling here. I'm going to the Twitter page called Trueflation, right, which dictates the quote unquote true number of inflation. So, based on today's CPI data by Trueflation, US is at 2.37%, right? Through 2.37%. So, seems like a percent lower than the actual figure that came out on the CPI, and then everything's getting kind of pushed down and muddled. So, off the back of that, we dropped slightly here after hitting an overnight high on the S&P of 45.24, up from yesterday's low about 40 handles. Right, we dropped into the 97 before we caught a bid. Right now, we're trying to trade back into those highs, into that 20 right now as I speak, and uh, some fine print is being attached to the year-over-year comparisons as annual inflation hit its peak at 9.1% in June 2022, means that the data and figures are now subject to a so-called base effects, which can show an acceleration even if the percentage of monthly CPI increases holds steady, right? It could also be a factor in why the year-over-year numbers aren't expected to slow much more in 2024, and comparatively, a slight increase in the year-over-year pace wouldn't necessarily mean a recent slowdown in inflation is in retreat. So even though last time around we saw 3.0% on the year over year, just because we saw 3.2% year over year doesn't mean we're flipping this thing back and going back to 9%, right? It's very normal to have some kind of fluctuation in these figures. Um, it's also going to be important to analyze the individual components of the CPI, right? Oil and gas prices have soared a lot this summer, which will impact energy, while food, rent, shelter costs, and healthcare are also on watch. So remember, the Fed has also another CPI report, the PCE report, and one more jobs report before the September 19th to 20th meeting. Whether or not central banks keep hiking, we believe interest rate structures across most developed markets offer value. So, in other news here, there's not too much to talk about. We had Disney what's it called? We had Disney earnings yesterday. I believe they are up here pre-market after initial drop. I'm gonna have to confirm with my chart here. I'm not necessarily sure. Yeah, it's up slightly here, but earnings came in Disney yesterday. Nothing too impressive. We're just watching inflation data right now as this thing just keeps pumping to the skies. Um, and that's honestly about it in terms of news from anything that I see. I think the next step here is to talk about what's been going on in the market and give some levels and some analysis for the actual S&P 500 futures. So when I look at the screens here in terms of the S&P 500 futures, we're stuck in this massive distribution that's been holding very true recently. The distribution finds itself with a slight divot starting at the 44, 96, 97 area, which was a great long today. And it can find itself all the way up to 45.55. So a very wide range there, about 60 handles. We're in this area right now in the bottom half of the distribution with a resistance around that 24 area. And then we have another level at 36, same as yesterday. So again, we're in the middle of this distribution. If 24 provides an offer, if and only if 24 provides an offer today, will I look for the potential reversal? The key area, there's two levels that you have to understand on the S&P 500 futures. They're very important. Number one, 16, 45, 16. Number two, 45, 10. These provided a lot of orders yesterday. A lot of size was traded at that area, getting stuck and aggressively short. So if sellers manage to push back below both of these levels, we will probably revisit the lows yet again at 44.80 and see what happens there. Best case scenario for the bears, they push through the low distribution to 44.55 and then catch a bid. That's what I'm going to be looking for. And those are the two scenarios that can play out for that reversal to the downside. You got to be very cautious around that 97, 96. With that being said, we're going to continue with our trading room here today. I am now out of the longs. I'm going to trade like 3 contracts on micros today because I'm done with this. And we'll see what kind of trades show up for our trading room today that we're going to be mentioning. And if you want to join us, check us out, tradeproacademy.com. Check out the last email wrap up. We got a special gift in there for you, that July wrap up that you would have received a few days ago. So thank you all, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'll be back in Canada actually on Sunday. So different background, different setting for a few weeks before we make another move. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you and take care.